Good evening, everyone, and welcome into the iRacing Today radio show for today, October the 3rd, 2015. I just whacked my chin off my microphone, so we're off to an excellent start. We haven't done one live for a bit, so I'm apparently a bit rusty. This is show number 115 of the aforementioned iRacing Today radio show. I am Trevor Cameron, your host, and beside me, sort of, kind of, almost, and even less than normal, I have Mr. Chad Dalton. How are you doing tonight from live on remote, what's the word the news people say? You know, that you're on remote location. We'll go with that. Chad, can you hear me out there in the field?
Well, Trevor, it's awful windy out here today, and if you can look behind me, you'll see this rain coming down, and it's just crazy out here today.
Are you being safe, Chad? Are you in any danger where you're at?
Absolutely.
So
as you can also see, I've been turned into a race car, and it's vroom vroom, go fast, turn left, maybe right.
And when I captured it, it just it only has part of it, so it actually says "Sist great call." So,
fantastic.
But for those of you who are watching live or on the YouTube archive later on, assuming that Twitch allows me to archive the show, for some reason 113 refused to go over. But anyway, you will notice that you have my animated face on the left-hand side of your screen, and we have a vroomy car on the right-hand side. That is because Chad...
When you say animated face, are you a cartoon character now?
No, I just mean that I move a lot, and my eyebrows move, and my I'm an action man. But anyway, Chad does not have video because of his current situation, as we described, not having his proper internet set up at his new place yet. So until such time as that happens, well, it's just going to be, if we're going live, it's just going to be my face, and perhaps I'll change the picture. I don't know, but. We are recording a bit late this week. Apologies for that, but circumstances prevented us from recording on our normal show night. And then, well, Chad's circumstances prevented Thursday. My circumstances prevented Friday. So here we are on Saturday evening, a little bit late, but nonetheless, we have a lot to discuss with you guys this week. A lot has gone on, and there, seems to be a common thread. We've got some controversy to talk about, and we'll discuss that in a little bit. But we also have some news for you fine people, including some updates on the Driver World Championships on the roadside and the oval side, an upcoming race, some upcoming features and whatnot, and we will be talking a little bit about experiences from the past week, I think. For once, I may trump Chad on that, but I'm not sure. We'll have to get to that. And we have, of course, our poll question closed at the end of the last, a few days ago, so we'll discuss the results from that. And I believe we have some not late breaking, but we have a couple people who have added in to our game of favorite tracks that we might get to here at the end of the show as well. Some people did not make the deadline before we decided to discuss it. Also, to be clear, we didn't give a deadline. So we just said, hey, when we have enough, we're going to talk about it. So we did. But a few people have sent in some late notifications. So with all that being said, Chad, why don't you get us started with a little bit of news of upcoming events?
Yeah, so the World Cup of iRacing is back in black. But this is the 7th year, which is what iRacing's been around for 8 years now. Is that right? Or 9?
I don't know. It's been around ever since I've been around, so it's 43 years old. Wait, I may have got my math wrong.
So, in case you're not familiar, the World Cup of iRacing is basically, to describe it in short, a competition for your club versus the rest of the clubs. So, for example, Trevor is in the Canada Club, and his club wants to take down the rest of the world. And
that is our secret. That's our secret desire, really, because I mean, everybody thinks of us as the pacifists, but you know what? We're just secretly, we're quietly wanting to take over the world. I mean, you don't do it all loud. Way. Yeah, if you do it all loud, everybody will stop you.
And then as soon as you do it, you apologize for it.
Exactly.
So that's Canada. So anyways, the World Cup, think of it as like the World Cup of football or soccer, depending on what part of the world you live in. Basically, it's country versus country. But in this case, club versus club. So for its 7th year, and this time, as iRacing says, it's better than ever.
I swear you were going to go with, and this time it's personal.
And up close.
Cowboy.
For 1 month, starting on October the 24th and running through, which this isn't 1 month, November the 14th, the World Cup takes center stage. And you can be a part of it by making your club victorious, potentially. If you take pride in your country or club, where you are from, this is an opportunity to join in with others just like you from your own club and prove that your club has what it takes to be the best in the world. The sim racing competition starts with the qualifying round on Saturday, October the 24th, and features the NASCAR Xfinity, Chevrolet, Ford, and Toyota on the lovely oval at Homestead Miami Speedway in Homestead, Miami, Florida. And it also features the Dallara DW12 IndyCar at Suzuka International Circuit. The top 16 club teams will advance to the tournament group stage on Saturday, November the 7th, with then top 5 remaining teams advancing to the 2015 World Cup Finals, which of course are slated for 1 week after that on Saturday, November the 14th. Now, a couple key things you need to know. Number 1, you have to register for this stuff. So we will have a link in the show notes where you can do the driver registration if you are interested in supporting your club. Another thing to note, and most clubs I believe already have this, excuse me, anyways, but just in case, you also need to have a captain for your club. So basically somebody in charge of the said club. And there is also a link that we will have in the show notes for the captain registration in case your club does not have one and you say, hey, I'll do that.
Say, hey, wait, so I can help.
Yeah, I will not only defeat the world, but I will be the leader. And yeah. So these things are pretty cool. I participated in a few before. And there are quite a few people on iRacing that enjoy these. Some people probably don't know that they exist. Some people probably don't want to join them. But they can be a lot of fun, and it's kind of neat to. I mean, yeah, we're still racing for ourselves, and there's some individualness in there, but you're racing for the pride of your club. So it's pretty cool to support your club and try to take down the world.
Yeah, these are pretty cool events, and it's one of those things where, like you said, if you're not aware that they're happening, they can be easily missed because they're not something that's jumping out at you on the front page. It's not something that, like a World Tour event or a Road Warrior type thing where, you look and available, sessions. Oh, there it is. This, you have to kind of go through a couple more hoops to get to. So, that's why we figured it'd be a good idea to bring some awareness to it and hopefully get some of you guys out there and participating. So, and Homestead Miami is a great place to have that sort of event because there is that's a really fun oval track because there's a lot of multiple grooves as far as actually racing through those corners there. So, and with of course all the changes we've been going through, I think that'll be an awesome race. So,
yeah, and Suzuka is a very fun road course as well. So, and I mean, I've never tried the IndyCar there, but I'm sure that it would be fun. So, one thing to note, and I should have confirmed this before I said it, but typically these involve safety rating and iRating. So If you're all like, yeah, I'll go jump in there, but you're one of those people that kind of like the iRating and safety rating to be where they are, then you might want to be a little leery about joining. But don't let that keep you from joining, but just keep that in the back of your head that they do count these as official. So,
well, I mean, which is a good idea because you don't want somebody going in and saying, haha, I don't want my country to rule the world, and just, go out there and cause havoc. Nobody needs that. Nobody wants havoc.
That's true. But all the information you can find in our show notes about this if you happen to be curious about racing. Now, moving along and changing gears into the next news item that we're going to mention. It was posted yesterday, I believe, that DirectX 11, which is something that we've been really looking forward to, and it's going to really, 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 really enhance the sim, apparently is now running in the alpha environment, and it is said that it might be released in March 2015, which would be the Season 2 build. So still a few months off, and obviously that's something that was previously mentioned as coming at the end of the year, but last time I checked, March is not at the end of the year.
Yeah, and I don't think they ever promised it at the end of the year, but that was their target. And I don't even know if it was an official target or if it was just kind of their, pie in the sky sort of thing. But their intention was to get it out before the end of the year, which unfortunately doesn't look like it's going to be happening. And the big deal about DX11 coming out is the fact that that leads to a lot of other things. It's not just running in a different environment, when it comes to the graphics and stuff. This is the thing that's going to lead into the day-night transitions. It's going to lead to, a better graphical representation of what's happening with the dynamic tracks. It leads into a bunch of stuff. So it's a big deal that it is that we're having to wait a little bit longer for it, but I would much rather we wait, an extra season for it, and considering that it affects everything that the simulation touches, rather than it come out in a rushed format and all of a sudden break everything. So I'm okay with they take their time. I mean, not too much time, but take your time.
And I totally agree. Another thing that David Tucker, who's an iRacing staff member, posted in the forums, he actually posted a poll. So if you haven't seen this, of course, we'll put in the show notes, a link in the show notes. There's going to be a lot of links in the show notes, just FYI.
Good thing I'm not in a canoe, because I can do that with a mouse and keyboard a lot easier than you can.
Yes. So the question that David Tucker, that David Tucker, rather, posted was, do you want autocross on iRacing? And that doesn't necessarily mean the whole bike thing where you jump big dirt mounds. Here's what he posted. We really want to do this. In fact, I wrote up a really nice proposal for it a while back. The problem is that it is a very big project that covers several areas of the code. And this is David talking, obviously. To me, it is way too simple-minded to just think of cones on the skid pad. You want to be able to use any track and lay out all kinds of barriers and features so you can make custom configurations. Add to that timing gates and a start-finish line, and you can create any number of racing styles, from figure eight racing to drag racing or the previously mentioned autocross. Personally, again, David talking, I want to add in jumps and other toys so you can get silly, but that's just me. Anyway, once you have all that, then you need to host the track layouts online and let people put up custom sessions. And ideally, you want to have a leaderboard that can keep track of results for multiple sessions so we can have the weekly shootout event. Basically, we need a track editor, a whole set of artwork that can be placed on the track, a web backend to allow for hosting, a bunch of server work to glue it all together, and worst of all, a rewrite of our race control logic to allow for different timing and scoring situations. The end result will be awesome, but it's not but it is not a one developer in a 3-month type feature. And just taking a quick gander at the results, and which aren't closed yet, just for the record. But 48% of people said yes, they would like this. 41% of people said no, and 12% said turnip.
Turnip?
Which I'm not sure why that's there.
Indeed.
But that's what it says.
Well, and for those, we were discussing this before the show went live, and according to Wikipedia, in case you're curious, autocross, also called solo, auto X, or auto slalom, is a timed competition in which drivers navigate one at a time through a defined course on either a sealed or unsealed surface. It is a form of motorsports that emphasizes safe competition and active participation. Basically, it's just a temporary course with cones, is what the idea is, and then you basically try to do your best time in, and usually they will have it split out by different car classes. It's something that people like. I've heard of them actually setting these sort of things up in big parking lots and just having a bunch of people come out and participate. So it would. I think I say turn up on this because I don't think it really would add anything to the sim that we need. To be honest with you, I mean, it'd be cool, but with so many tracks we have available, do we really need, it's like, hey, I don't know, I went into the infield on this course and put a bunch of cones out. Let's see what you do with that. That just, I don't know. I don't think it's really a direction that the sim needs to go in. I don't think that's something we need to add to our repertoire, so to speak. But we shall see.
I get it. But it does appear to be on iRacing's wish list, so to speak. The one thing that I thought was really funny is after David Tucker, wow, I did it again. After David Tucker posted that, I had a good laugh when I believe it was Kevin Kyle came in, quoted David's post, and then said, "Stunt driving confirmed." So I got a good laugh out of that.
Dirt confirmed. Dirt mounds confirmed for jumps. Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
they
we
already
don't
got
need Oxford anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna say they already have Oxford, so obviously we know they can create dirt mounds that we can do jumping over. So just put some cones around it, and there you go. Autocross. Boom.
Yeah. Boom.
So moving right along away from that, we have a couple of announcements to make. I mean, I guess they're not really announcements in the fact that those who are following said series probably already know, but we want to recognize them on the show here. And the first is that Gregor Hutu, who we've mentioned on the show several times before, has officially clinched up his 5th championship on the road side. I was going to say world and then road, and it was going to be world side. In the World Driving Champion Road Series that's sponsored by something that I don't remember at this point in time. It's I always Road DWC. It's always going to be that. It's not going to be the peak this. Anyway, Gregor has clinched up his 5th championship to the surprise of nobody, really, I don't think. I think if Gregor's involved, then you just assume he's going to win that championship, although he did have some competition this year. It's not like he's running away with these, but he did clinch that championship, so congratulations to Mr. Hutu. Also, on the oval side, Mr. Kenny Humphrey has picked up his first championship on the in the oval DWC. Something sponsor.
Okay, here. I'm going to fix this for you.
Okay.
The road side is the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, and the oval side is the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series.
Right. Like I said, DWC, something, sponsor. Got it.
You're horrible at this.
I'm a businessman. We discussed this last week, remember? I was already selling myself to a camera that nobody could see. Apparently, that's right. Apparently, I wouldn't make a very good driver though, because I'd be all like, "Yeah, so the old number 16 something car did great out there, and the guys did good, and I want to thank those guys who gave us money."
You could be like most drivers and just read it off of the big sign that's standing next to the camera. Anyways, continue on.
So, congratulations to Kenny Humphrey for picking up that championship as well. Great job by both those guys, and a nice payday to boot as well. So
it's Kenny's first title. So know that he's got to be smiling ear to ear in the trip to Homestead coming up in his future too.
Yeah, for those of you who are new to the sim or just not aware, I believe it's just the oval side that they actually, because it wouldn't make sense on the road side. I don't know what they do for a presentation on that, but the oval side they actually do fly the winner of the championship on the ovals down to Homestead, Miami, and they actually incorporate them as part of the NASCAR championship celebration and present them with their check on a stage and all kinds of cool things there as well. I'm assuming they probably get to go to the race too. Be kind of silly. It's like, we're going to fly you down. We're going to do all this stuff and whatnot. It's like, and if you want to go to the race, that's great. Ticketmaster this or
yeah.
That would be unfortunate.
They present the trophy and the check and get to hang out in the garage area. They get pit passes and all kinds of fun stuff. So it's pretty. It's not just the big check and the trophy that you get that makes winning the title in that series cool. It's the championship weekend that you get to participate in that I think I would almost have more fun with if I happened to be in Kenny's shoes.
More fun than a large check for $10,000?
Heck yeah.
I think we have different priorities, sir.
Well, after taxes, it would come down to like $9,000 probably.
Well, you just bought a house. You need all the money you can get, man. So
that's true, but don't have enough talent to get that check.
Fair enough. But speaking of road racing, which we kind of were with Mr. Hutu, there is another the next in the series of Road Warrior races coming up, and this is an endurance race, so it will play into the iRacing Endurance Championship as well, and that is coming up this. I was going to say this weekend, which seemed weird because we're in the middle of a weekend, so that's not entirely true, but the race is coming up on October the 10th, which is 1 week from today, next Saturday. And that race will be occurring at 1300 GMT or Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern time. And that is the Petit Le Mans.
Isn't it 9 a.m. Eastern time now with daylight?
I didn't think daylight hasn't happened yet.
Well, yeah, I know, but we're still in the daylight for the summer.
Yeah, I know.
Wouldn't it be? I thought it was at 9, though.
I don't know. Maybe it's at 9. I don't know. It's at 1300 GMT. Okay.
Yeah, but GMT wouldn't change.
I know GMT wouldn't change, so I'm just saying it is 1300 GMT.
I think it's 9. I think it's 9 Eastern. Until
what
November
you need
1st.
to do is you need to go to Google and you need to type in 1300 GMT to Eastern time, and it'll tell you. I mean, they've got tools to help you out with that. Okay, so maybe it is 9 o'clock. I don't know.
I think it's 9 o'clock.
That's why daylight savings time should be abolished, because it just messes everything up. Why don't we have our clocks just stay the same?
Yeah, and see, they created it to help out farmers, but, I mean, I know that farmers still exist, but it's like...
They did it to help out farmers, and since those are just a figment of our imagination like purple unicorns, then we don't need daylight savings time anymore.
But it's like the world doesn't need it anymore, so let's just kick it to the curve.
Yeah, we have headlights now. It's okay to farm in the dark a little bit. But,
yeah.
So at 1300 GMT, which may or may not be 9 a.m. Eastern Time, you can get your endurance on for 10 hours at Road Atlanta, which is, of course, the site for the Petit Le Mans, which I believe is either just ended or just about to end, the actual running of it, which happened today. But the Road Warrior Series version of it will be next Saturday, so check your clock. Make sure you show up at the right time, obviously, for that. Yes. And that will be a 10-hour race, so it's kind of it's not one of the short endurance races. It's not one of the 24 hours. It's kind of in between. And that's because that's what the actual Petit Le Mans is that 10-hour. It used to be a number of laps or 10 hours, whichever came first, but a couple of years ago, I think it was last year, they changed it to just a straight-up 10-hour race. So if you want to participate in that, get your team together and head on over to Road Atlanta for some road racing fun.
Yeah, and of course that will feature the same 5 cars as the previous endurance events in the Road Warrior Series, which is your 2 different classes, one being the HPD, and then the other class will feature the McLaren, the BMW, the Rough, and the Ford GT3. GT3.
I know. Too many GTs in that name. I mean, we have a hard enough time speaking as it is without adding into, complicating things. But speaking of things that I would rather see have done than autocross, I'm just kidding. Anyway, they've given a quick update on Lime Rock Park, sorry.
Lime Park?
Lime Park. That's where they make Sprite.
That's a new track somebody invented with autocross.
They took Lime Rock Park. They just took that little section that everybody sails off of in turn one and put a bunch of cones down and said, this is now Lime Park. Lime Rock Park is requiring an update. If you're not familiar, the track has actually changed a fair bit since they scanned it, and it is a bit different than the version that we have in the sim. They wanted to give us a update, and that comes right from the president himself, Mr. Tony Gardner. And he says that iRacing is still waiting for Lime Rock to finish construction work so it can be rescanned. As he says, quote, real track keeps changing and is hard to rescan, because it's like, okay, we went to scan it, but now we have all these bulldozers and tractors in the way. Just right in the middle of the track. I mean, and that's just, that'll mess up your lap every time.
Yeah, but see, that's where autocross would come in handy, because then we can just put a dirt mound and jump them.
Just put some cones around the tractor and a big dirt mound. Everything will be great. But yeah, obviously it would be very hard to create a new scan of that track if they're not done doing renovations on it. So once they're done, then they'll head back to that track and get a scan done. It's obviously a very short track, so I would imagine that it's probably easy for them to just grab the crew and go. It's not like it's one of the larger, obviously like Nürburgring or something like that, where it takes a lot of effort to rescan, or even a Pocono. I mean, it's a huge track. I mean, this is a track that you're going to get around, like in the MX-5, in under a minute most of the time. So it's a pretty small track. So I would imagine the commitment of time and effort and resources is probably a lot smaller. So I'm guessing they'll be able to pull the trigger on that as soon as it is ready for them to head on out. Mm-hmm. Moving along, we have it is possible, and of course no hard dates here, we're in the iRacing soon time frame, but that the Audi R8 LMS that we mentioned on the show last week, they had signed it, they are saying that it could be released in March of 2016, so in time for not next build but the build afterwards. Is that correct? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
The season 2 build.
Yeah, okay, because I'm looking at the timing. It's like, well, it's already October, man, because it's starting to get cold. It's like, is March really then 2 seasons away? But I guess we were actually a few weeks into this season. That's the thing that I'm kind of missing in this. But so the March 2016 season, they're saying we might have that Audi car in there. So hopefully for those of you looking forward to that, it will be there and available for you. That was a lot to say. Would you not agree?
It was. It was, but I had a lot to say at the beginning as well. So, I think we're square now.
Oh, excellent. Let's see, and I see that Chad is updating the show notes as we're speaking live. And I will say that
that's what I do.
I don't know how you're doing it, because you're doing it all on one piece of technology. You're Skyping, you're doing the show notes, you're doing everything on like your phone. So how you're even doing this, I don't know. It's black magic to me.
All while trying to stay afloat.
All while riding your canoe around. But I will just say, the thing you mentioned, we'll get to that later.
Aw.
So why don't you take it with our next item on the docket?
Okay, so the next item is going to expand, but I'm going to mention one thing very quickly, and this will make more sense when we get to the expansion part. So the Block Pain Endurance Series, that of course this and Season 4 is being run as a qualifying series for the brand new Block Pain and Block Pain Sprint Series coming next year in 2016, which will be, of course, the professional, quote unquote, the DWC of team racing, if you will. this past weekend, I mentioned that we mentioned on last week's show was the first race of that series, and that race was at Monza. And those races went off, apparently without a hitch. Everything was great and dandy. And I can report that our two teams did pretty darn good.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, starting deep in the field and making up some, a lot of spots. Both teams did.
Yes. I know that the team that I'm on started, I think, like 39th out of 40 cars or something like that. And they finished 20th. And then the other team finished 21st. So, which may not sound great, but the strength of fields they were both in, I think we were in the second and the third split, respectively. So, pretty good strength of fields, and I would say that those finishes are extremely good, except they don't count.
Yeah, they never happened.
Yes, they have been wiped. The Monza race, this is from iRacing, will not count towards the standings. And I'm just going to read verbatim what Tony Gardner said here. So, Tony says, and this is the first sentence here, we're going to get to that in the expansion of this. Because of the much talked about bug, we are going to not count the first race in the block pain qualifying standings. We are very sorry, but we think the right thing to do, Tony. Hopefully, the fix we are going to roll out, we are guessing very early next week, which this was posted on September the 29th, so just a few days ago. So we're hoping that this upcoming week they'll have the bug fixed. But he says that we should know after testing this week, but are confident it will fix the glitch. Therefore, the first race will be the October 10th race, which also happens to be at Road Atlanta, the same day as the 10-hour race at Road Atlanta. So if you're big on Road Atlanta, well, October 10th is your day. He then goes on to say, we will add the first race later in the schedule, so it'll likely be 3 races, 3 weeks in a row. The schedule will be adjusted this week, meaning this upcoming week. He then says, also a reminder, your team must stick with the same car if interest in qualifying for the WC Series next year. Whatever car you start with on October the 10th, you must stick with. Although in the team standings you cannot see the car currently, we will be manually checking that. So just a note, iRacing knows. He then says you can decide on a different car before the WC season next year. More about that later. Again, our sincerest apologies about the glitch and good luck. So,
yeah,
that particular thread that we'll put also a link in the show notes has already expanded to 10 pages, but it's not as big as the 21-page thread that explains the bug.
Yeah, and before we get into that, I was thinking it would actually be quite interesting if they somehow managed to have the that race happening like after the Petit Le Mans and then carried over the track conditions, so the thing was just nothing but rubber after both races actually happened. It's like, you're more rubber than track now, man. But the bug that they are talking about, and we'll put a link in the show notes, of course, to this as well. And I think there were actually even sub threads as well, but this particular 21 bug thread that's kind of started all of this, although it actually does not explain anything, which is the part that I find funny about it. It just, you can cancel the qualifying series for now. Well, okay, he does sort of say, but not really. Anyway, there's a huge bug with the skybox or so. Lap times are hilarious for some guys. That is not the way where qualifying for WC should go. Fix this first. Now, what they are talking about is the fact that apparently the dynamic weather wasn't quite working as intended. And the track. Right. And this is something that they actually, the last 2 patches that came out specifically addressed this very issue, or at least a facet of this issue. And that is the fact that not everybody was at the same track, basically, is what it comes down to.
Oh, man, I'm at the wrong track.
You may think that you're at Road Atlanta and the guy beside you is at Road Atlanta, but you're not at, it's like that parallel universe thing. You know, imagine a billion different versions of Road Atlanta around the world, and each of them has different conditions in the sky, and each of them has different track temperatures. And that's kind of what happened. Apparently, somehow there's a bug in the way that the information was transmitted out or something. I don't know. We don't know the ins and outs. I don't think they've actually fully explained it. But what would end up happening was people would have different track conditions. So you'd qualify for your race. You're qualifying with one set of track conditions. Somebody else is qualifying with a different set. And temperature, in particular, temperature can play a huge factor in how fast you can get that car around there, because cooler temperatures, you're going to get more horsepower out of it, and you're going to have more grip on the track if it's cooler. So people were pulling off 1.5, 2 second faster laps in the qualifying. I know it wasn't at Road Atlanta, just we were talking about Road Atlanta a lot. But I just figured I'd throw that in there before the people came out. Wasn't even at Road Atlanta. That's why the problem is. But so people were able to have basically an extreme advantage over other people by not having the same conditions.
And to take it a step further, the bug really expanded. As Trevor said, they were trying to patch that the last couple of builds with the weather. But now the dynamic track apparently is doing the same thing. And basically what would happen, or what happened rather, in the Monza race, and the reason why the Monza race the first time got wiped from the standings is because it kind of became a thing where there's a couple different ways you can join the session. Most people, I think, typically do the join session at the big green button in the top right corner when you go to do a race, but there are different ways that you can join, and apparently the way that people joined would and you would join and you would see the track conditions, and then you could exit out of the room, and then you could rejoin, and you would have different track conditions, and people would in the Monza race that they did would basically, I don't know if manipulate's the right word, but they would basically try to get the favorable conditions to where they had all the grip and all the joys of making their race cars super fast. And other people that didn't know about it, or maybe did know about it but chose not to, quote, cheat, would have the not so great track conditions and weather conditions, and so they would end up in some cases being 1.5 seconds slower than the guys who had the really good grip. And I as I mentioned on last week's show, I didn't race at Monza, nor did Trevor, so we did not get to experience this firsthand, but some of our teammates did, and they did say, it was kind of interesting to see, they thought it was funny, looking back on it now that they know that this exists, because we didn't know that it did before that that it kind of all made sense to them how some of those guys that were in their room were just so much faster. And they were also saying things like, no wonder people were disconnecting and connecting and disconnecting and connecting, right before the race started. So that was kind of the big deal with Monza, and the reason why it got wiped, because most people were using it to gain an advantage on the system. And that's one of those things where I think it's very clear, if you know about it and you were using it, that I think it's very clear that it's cheating. But at the same time, iRacing has the bug there, so it's kind of like, I don't know. That's one of those where it's tough for me, because it's like, well, you're clearly cheating, but, well, iRacing lets you. So
yeah, well, you know what, I'll take a different side on that one. And I actually, thanks for pointing that part out, because I actually didn't know that's I knew about what was happening with the bug. I didn't realize people had found a way to actually game the system, so to speak. But in my opinion, that is just straight up cheating. I mean, you have found a unfair advantage because of a flaw with the software, and you are manipulating it to your advantage. I mean, it's the same as,
Yeah.
when if you remember way back when in the one of the DWC races that people were found out that I think it was Indy. They were that they could use the warning track, or not warning track. This isn't baseball. One of they could cut the corners, cut the corners, and use the help me out. What's the
apron?
Yeah, but it wasn't the runoff lane. Anyway, it was one of the extra lanes. Anyway, they were able to use that to gain an advantage, and the software wasn't calling a black flag on it. It wasn't calling it as illegal, so they just used it. And iRacing stepped in and said, "No, you idiots! You knew that was cheating. You know that's not the racing surface. You were, I mean, that's I don't know. If you find a bug and you manipulate it, you're still cheating, as far as I'm concerned."
Yeah, and I totally agree. But it's just a shame, that all this happened, because it's like, to me, like, I didn't even know it existed, and I haven't even. Today was actually the first time that I've been on iRacing since all this has happened. Now, something to take this a step further, to my knowledge, they have not only wiped the Monza race, but I believe they even went a step further and disabled dynamic weather and tracks.
They did. I can confirm that.
But is that only in the official stuff, or is that for hosted rooms as well?
I don't know for hosted stuff as well. I kind of assume so, because it would probably play havoc with league stuff as well. But I know for a fact for the official series they definitely did disable dynamic weather for this week, and we just went with static weather because they actually specifically talked about it in the IndyCar thread when I was doing my Winter Series race this week. So they did disable it across at least official ones. I would have to imagine that they would have disabled it on hosted in league as well to not cause problems there.
And for the record, I know that there are a lot of people that are upset about the Monza race getting wiped, because certain people, even if they didn't gain the advantage, they didn't know about it and they just entered the race like they typically would. Doing that, where they wipe the results, and then also disabling the dynamic track and weather, I think high five to iRacing on both, because they pretty much had to do it, especially wiping the results from Monza, because of the fact that, I don't know, you could probably say half the field didn't know about it and half the field knew about it and used it to try to get their grip, and that totally makes the standings not accurate.
Yeah, and I'll second that as well. I mean, it was a tough call. I mean, because you are going to tick off people. Because when you think about it, I mean, we're not. I mean, it's not like a 24 hours of Daytona or something like that. But we are talking about a team endurance event, and it's not just one individual person. This is groups of people that have come together, done a lot of practice, arranging schedules from different people, usually probably in different cities, different countries, as is the case with a lot of our races that go on. And to arrange everybody, you're going to take over at this time, you're going to do this time. Like, that's a lot of effort on the sim racers' behalf that they put into this race that now is wiped from the record. So that's a huge blow for people who put a lot of effort in. But when you look at what happened, like you said, even if you remove the fact that some people could game the system, even if you took that out and that wasn't the case, it was just random when you logged in and that's what you got, it's still not fair. And you can't let that stand. So
yeah, and I mean, to put this in perspective, like I mentioned earlier, some teams were 1.5 seconds. I mean, some people even reported in the forum post that we'll link about all this that they were even 2 seconds slower. And some people may be just 2 seconds slower because they're just slower. But in a lot of these cases, these were really good teams who, have strong drivers and I'm sure strong setups and have a good feel for Monza with whatever car they were in. And yet they were still, a couple seconds slower. I mean, it's one thing to be 1 or 2 tenths slower. It's 2 seconds and a lap is huge
Oh, yeah.
in a race that lasts for 3 hours. So, I mean, just to put that in perspective, and that's why, Trevor and I are saying that even though it was a tough call, I think it was totally the right call based on what happened.
Yep, absolutely. So, we talked about it before before this came out, and we talked about what was, when it was announced that it would be part of this build. We kind of mentioned that we expected some bumps in the road, and there were a few at the beginning, and we thought we got past it. Apparently, there was a little bit more waiting in the wings, but for such a huge undertaking, as we talked about with the dynamic weather, the dynamic track, the track temperature changing and heating, cooling depending on the direction of the sun and the tires on the track and everything, this was big. This was one of the biggest software implementations they've had in the service since it started. So for it to not go off without some hitches such as this, I'm not surprised. But I think they're taking the right steps to make sure that we get in the right direction and to make sure that everything ends up being fair in the end. So,
yeah,
I mean, I will be better off at the other end. I feel bad for the guys who put in the effort and weren't able to, I mean, heck, we had 2 teams in there. So I feel bad for all the people who put the effort in, but, I guess you're just going to have to take it with a grain of salt and say, you know what? All right. That was practice. What did we learn as a team? I mean, and move forward and hopefully, improve on your results from last time. And, it'll be, all good in the end. So.
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, the Monza race has been rescheduled. It'll be between what was going to be anyways, race 5 and 6. Except now it'll be 4 and 6. So the new Monza race will be race 5. And so, I mean, at least we still get to go back there and redo it. But again, it's going to be different. But it's definitely a huge bug that obviously is not a good one. I was trying to think. It might actually be one of the worst bugs that I've seen iRacing have because it dramatically affects the race. And at first, people were saying, "Oh, this is definitely a qualifying bug," because people were trying to make it. And I think it might be more of a qualifying bug, but I've definitely seen some people say that it had an effect on the race as well. So I don't think it's just a qualifying bug. I mean, I obviously haven't been on the track during this bug, but just from reading my teammates' comments and some of the people in the forums, I think it's just an in general bug. So, yeah, that's a big one. And like we also said earlier, iRacing intends to fix it this next week. So hopefully that will take care of that one and we can have the dynamic stuff back working the way that it should.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny when you think about it, the fact that, this build had a lot of big things in it, obviously. And one of the big things that they implemented was the new anti-cheating system where, it was going to detect problems, or software or any sort of exploits or anything that people could be using on the outside to gain an advantage. And the irony of it all is the fact that iRacing put in like the biggest cheat into the game while they put in their own anti-cheating system. So, it's like this is probably the best gain an advantage over your competition piece of cheating software that has probably ever been implemented, and iRacing created it themselves. So I just find that funny.
Yeah, I do too.
But anyway, so hopefully next week we'll be able to report that it has been corrected and everything is back to normal before the guys head out and do some endurance racing at Road Atlanta, and let's hope that all the haulers unload their cars at the same Road Atlanta next week. So
hopefully.
So that ties up the news. That was a bit of a big, like I said, a couple of big items in there, and glad we got a chance to cover them this week for you fine people out there. But moving into the next section of the show, we are going to talk a little bit about experiences from the past week. And Chad, did you get any on-track time out there with your weird situation when it came to the house and the internet and all of that stuff going on?
Oh yes, I definitely did. I just got one race in, and then I did some practice this afternoon actually. But my one race was in the Power Series because, as I mentioned previously, I am still trying to finish out that season because there's only like 4 or 5 races left. Actually, right now there's only 4 left, and one of them is tomorrow. So after tomorrow, we'll be down to 3. So last week's race was at New Hampshire, which is a good track for me. It's also a huge rhythm track, and if there's anything that you guys need to know about me, it is the fact that I am a rhythm driver. Maybe not so much as some people, but on quite a few tracks, once I get into a rhythm, I can really click off the lap times, and New Hampshire is probably one of the biggest ones, where I get into a rhythm, I can just click off the times there. Unfortunately, our race last week was sort of filled with cautions, especially at the end. The beginning and the middle stages had a couple of cautions, but it wasn't like horrible, and we got some good green flag runs in there. But the ending was a bit crazy, but I'll get to that in a minute. The race for me was good until the end. It was actually kind of the perfect setup. I ended up, winning the pole, which, here's a fun fact for you. That was my 6th pole of the season.
Nice.
I laugh at that because it's like, I don't know how to qualify. And yet this year alone, like not the season in the Power Series, but just in 2015, for whatever reason, I've been a better qualifier. I don't know if it's the weather or whatever, but I've noticed a lot more this year that in my mock qualifying run and practice versus my actual qualifying run, in the qualifying session, my qualifying session lap has pretty much always been faster than my mock attempt in practice. And that has like never ever happened in my entire career.
Yeah, I was gonna say, any longtime listeners of the show know, if you've been with us for a while, you have heard Chad complain on multiple times about how horrible of a qualifier he is. I mean, he is an awesome racer. Once you get him actually, the green flag flies. He is awesome on the track, but for some reason he is. What is it? I think you said you were the Matt Kenseth of.
Yes, the Matt Kenseth of iRacing. That's just who I am. Like I can race really well, but I could never qualify really well. Well, now the qualifying suddenly, and I didn't even do anything differently. It's not like have put focus on trying to qualify better. I just show up and do the same thing that I've always done, and for some reason it's just working better. Now the cool thing and the reason why I kind of mentioned this, besides the fact that I'm just happy that I have 6 poles, is that because obviously I would trade all of those for wins. But the Power Series this season is trying something a little bit different with their qualifying, doing the Fast 5 thing. And basically, in short, I think there's 5 races on the schedule, if I'm not mistaken, that were picked out as tracks where this goes in. And it's kind of like a qualifying championship, if you will. And it's a, I think you get 5 minutes, and everybody goes out on the racetrack, and you run the best lap you can, and then you sit there for 5 minutes, and the top 5 cars at the end of the first 5 minutes get to go out again for another 5 minutes, and that's how you get your grid. And basically, if you're in the top 5, you get points. So, like, if you win the pole, you get 5 points, and if you qualify 5th, you get 1 point, and you can fill in the rest of the blanks on your own. So,
well, okay, just a quick question for you. Now, I wondered about this. When you do the Fast 5 qualifying, is there a rule on tires, such as there is with the NASCAR qualifying? Like, do they make the Fast Five stay out and not change their tires, or can you put new boots on there?
No, you can put new boots.
Okay.
So basically, it's just something fun, I guess, to kind of add into the qualifying experience that John's doing this year. And it's something that, quite honestly, I didn't even think that I would even remotely care about. Not because I am being mean to John, but just because I can't qualify. Except now.
Except for now, you can.
Yeah. Except for now, I think we've had 4 of those now. I think the last one is at Charlotte. And I'm pretty sure that I've won 2 of them. I missed the first one. I think I qualified 6th on the first one. So I missed out on the first one. And then the next one, I think I qualified 2nd or 3rd. And then I've won the last 2. So I don't know what the current points is on that, but I have a good shot at being the winner of it if I can do well at Charlotte. But anyways, that was a random side note that I talked way too long about. So the race itself was pretty good. It was a 150 lap race, and I paced myself for the first 100 maybe. And we probably got to, I don't even remember what lap it was on, but I would say around 50, 60, somewhere in there. And I'd been running 2nd or 3rd most of the night. I don't think I'd led any laps at that point. Even though I started on the pole, I lost the lead on the first lap because I started on the inside, and the inside is not the preferred line at New Hampshire. So, but on that 50 or 60 lap, wherever that was, my pit crew had a terrible pit stop, but not as terrible as some of the other people, and I ended up winning the race out of the pits. So I got the lead and ended up leading some laps, and then we had a kind of a quickie yellow, and after that yellow ended, we had a pretty good long green flag run. And during that time, as I mentioned before that, I was just kind of pacing myself. But about this point, we were kind of getting towards the latter part of the race. And I thought, okay, if this kind of stays green, I need to put a little bit of distance on the guys behind me. So and we still had to make pit stops, obviously. So I pushed it a little bit more and kind of drove out to a little over a 1-second lead over Tim, who was in second. And so I was kind of, getting into my rhythm and starting to pull away a little bit. And I thought, okay, make a pit stop. I didn't know what lap I had decided to make it on, but, make that pit stop, and then we should be good to go. And then we had another caution, I don't know, several laps later, came back out with a race lead, and we were like right on the dot, but a little bit short of making it on fuel at that point. Because for the record, if you're new to listening, the Power Series does the 70% fuel thing. So you have to make more pit stops. And we went back green, and I had the lead, and Tim, I think, was still in second. And everybody was closer to me this time because I wasn't going as hard, because I knew that we needed to save some fuel because we were like right on the dot. The more laps that I ran, even with saving, if you've never raced in New Hampshire, on the wall, as you're entering the turns, they have this countdown, like 4, 3, 2, 1. And I pretty much always brake at New Hampshire on the 2. When I was trying to save a little bit of fuel to see if I could maybe stretch that out and not have to make a pit stop, I started actually letting off at the 3, and I let it roll a really long ways. And the more I did that, it just didn't seem to work. So I don't know, I probably had like a 4-car length lead at this point. And Tim, I think Tim was in 3rd at this point now. And he put up his little text chat that he was going to pit. And I had actually been discussing with myself that I probably need to go ahead and pit because it's pretty clear that I'm not going to make it. And as soon as he threw up his little text chat about pitting, I just like hung a left and went to pit road because we were in turn 4. And when I did that, I don't know if it messed him up or if it threw him off because he wasn't expecting that or what, or I don't know what happened, but Tim ended up missing pit road. And so I got to the pits, he stayed out, and then I think he pitted the next lap, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe the lap after that. And So I changed right sides. I filled it up enough to do it. And I know we've talked a lot about right side tires and if it really matters or not, but at New Hampshire, I think it's the right call because nobody can pass anybody. So,
Somehow in my head, the conversation you're having is Tim gets on the text chat and says, whatever, I can't remember his car number, pitting now. And Chad's all like, not before me, you're not.
yeah, basically that's what happened. Um, and that messed him up and he didn't pit. So Tim and a couple of other cars that had been in the top 5 pitted like within the next lap or two, and they took 4. So I came out like 5.5 seconds ahead of them and kind of held that. I think it dropped down to 5, and we ran like, I don't know, 5 or 6 laps. And then the worst thing happened. A caution came out, and that kind of killed the whole race because I went from kind of being the guy in the catbird seat. There were a couple of cars who they said afterwards in the forums that they were going to try to stretch it because they thought they could make it. But I was still ahead of Tim, who's the guy I'm racing in the points. That's why that matters. And I was potentially going to get a top 3 finish, maybe even better, if those guys would have run out or something. So I was kind of like happy about where I was after that pit stop. But then the caution came out, and that completely ruined everything. And that came out with like 30 or something to go in the race. So it's pretty late, and that is just where, unfortunately, this race just became a joke. I don't know what the reason was. I'm not even going to speculate about what the reason was because I don't have a clue what happened. But it's like everybody lost their brains, and it just became a wreck fest, which is a shame for several reasons. Number one, because obviously we're all there to race, and the fact that we didn't get to race kind of is, sucky. The second reason is that I'm sure that John is losing his hair already over the series, and now he's probably bald because of that night. And third, it really cost me. So when the caution came out, I knew I had to pit again because I had run several laps and my tires were going to be not so great. And I had the debate in my brain of, should I just take 2 again? Because even though my lefts have a bunch of laps on them, my rights don't really have that much. If I take 2, I could probably beat everyone out that hasn't pitted yet and be, instead of being like 10th or 11th, which is where I was going to be, because not everything had cycled yet, I might be back up towards the front, like 4th, 5th, and maybe I could make something work. But then I had the thought of, well, if the race goes green, I don't think 2 tires are going to work very well. So I took 4, which was stupid because the race went under caution for the rest of the way. And if I'd have taken 2, I would have probably had a way different and way better outcome. But I didn't, and I took 4, and that killed my night because I restarted in like 10th, I think, or 11th, maybe, on the first restart. And I went into, I think it was the first lap after the restart, and I went into the turn, and I was on the outside at this point, and the guy in front of me was trying to get to the outside, and he kind of came up in front of me, but I barely hit him, and I had to check up just a tiny bit more than I normally would. And the guy behind me came in like a wrecking ball and just totally ran over me. He apologized for it, but I mean, it was what happened to me did not. Honestly, there's no reason why the guy behind me should have hit me because I didn't slow down that much more than I normally do, from trying not to hit the guy in front of me. But he just completely came in and hit me, and I spun, didn't hit anything. Nobody hit me. I locked the brakes down, sat in the middle of the racetrack. Everybody missed me, but still, that kind of set me back. But now here's a key thing that I want to point out. Before that caution came out with about 30 to go, I had a 0 incident race going, and my car was completely clean. At the end of the race, and I'm not making this up, I got disqualified for going over the incident limit, which is 15.
Oh, boy.
That's how bad the last 25 laps or whatever the race was for me, because I got involved in so many crashes, 4 crashes to be exact. One was just the spin that I just mentioned. The second one was something that happened up in front of me, and I don't even know what it was, but like a bunch of cars collided. I went way down to the bottom to miss it. Kind of got hit in the right side, but not really. But it still gave me a 4X. Then I had to drive through the grass to, you know, because I had already turned down there anyways. Because as soon as I saw the wreck, the whole track was blocked, and I was like, grass, you're my friend. And so that gave me another incident point, you know, for going off track. But I gained like 4 spots because of it. And then I was up to like 6. So I was like, okay, I'm making progress. And then on the next restart, the guy in front of me, which was Tim actually, went way up the racetrack, and I was in the 3rd lane, and I was trying to, you know, get back to the front. There was a guy below me, and we all just kind of wrecked. And then the thing that ended up doing me in on incident points was on the what was my last restart. I don't even know what happened, but the Terry, who's another who's a teammate to Tim, we've mentioned him before, he was underneath me. I was in the 3rd lane, and it's kind of the same scenario that happened with Tim, you know, right before, where Tim went way too high. This guy went way too high, except unlike what Tim did, this guy came right back down the racetrack, and I had absolutely nowhere to go because I was in the middle. I mean, I couldn't turn left because I hit Terry. I couldn't turn right because I hit that guy. The only option I had was to hit the brakes. And by the time I would have done that, it wouldn't have mattered because the guy just literally came right down on top of me. And as soon as that happened, I didn't wreck or anything, but I did kind of lose a little bit of control and hit the outside wall. And as soon as I hit the wall, that put me over the incident limit and kicked me. So surprisingly, though, and I didn't even know, I swear to you guys, I didn't even check to see where I finished because I didn't even care. I knew it wasn't going to be great. But I actually looked yesterday, almost a whole week later, to see where I finished. And I still finished 11th, but I got disqualified. So I didn't finish the last 4 laps or whatever it was. And the night went from being kind of the perfect setup for me to being like one of the worst experiences ever. So tomorrow night is California, supposedly, although I haven't done the math, but somebody told me that I was still, with drop weeks, 1 point behind Tim. You know, so I'm still in the points race apparently, but I don't have much confidence about it. And tomorrow night is the last race before drop weeks take effect, and then we don't get any more drop weeks. So we have 4 races remaining. That includes tomorrow. And after tomorrow, our 4 drop weeks will take effect, whatever they are. And then the last 3 races, which won't start for like 2 more weeks because we get an off week before those races, you're just on your own, basically. And you earn it on the track is what they call it in the Power Series. So there's no drop weeks, and it's just what you get is what you got, I guess. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully the racing improves, because ever since the new build, it hasn't been the best.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's a factor of people adjusting to the fact of how much different a track can be. I mean, that's probably might factor in it a little bit, but it does seem to be the fact that things seem to be not as clean as they once were. So,
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. You guys, I mean, I think Trevor might express it more than I do, but it really does bug me when I get incident points. And I have honestly, all week long, I've been trying to think, and I swear that is the first race, that one at New Hampshire, that I've ever been booted from because of too many incident points. I don't ever recall getting disqualified for that reason before.
And so you got to experience it, you know, that feeling, because you would have been racing in you would have been, going with the wheel, and you hit the wall, and you're trying to, you probably would have been recovering and trying to get ready to, where's the car going to go afterwards, and then the wheel just goes dead, like a dead fish in your hands, like as soon as it happens,
Yeah.
because it just kicks you, and all of a sudden the wheel just blur. Because I've had that happen. It's like it's the most. I don't know. There's some connection between your brain and the wheel, and all of a sudden it just going completely limp in your hands. That just breaks your brain. Because I know I've done that. Like because I've had it happen, and it's like, or even it has the same thing as if you get disconnected for whatever reason. But that feeling of, okay, I'm fighting the car, boom, oh, it's all over.
Yeah. And actually, and that's true. But to take it a step further, my seat did the same thing.
It's like,
Yeah, that, and like I cannot. For those of you that have a seat, and for the record, I have a GS4 G seat that simulates G-forces. And for those of you that have something like that, or that in particular, you guys will know how, or girls will know how, that your body, like your nerves in your body, like get that feel going with the seat, and so you get so used to it. Like I've talked about before, when one of the gears kind of went out on the thing, and I had to replace it, and I didn't have the seat working for a few races, that I could, like, my body could like feel what the G-forces would be like if, even though it wasn't on, and I was just in a stationary seat, but it felt like my body kept trying to like simulate it because it's gotten so used to it. And in that moment when I hit the wall, and then it put me over the limit, and it suddenly kicked me to the screen, and I was no longer in the car, I had just hit the wall. So the seat like banged me, with the wall hit, and then it was just like instantly just dead. It's like I liken it to an air mattress. You've got all the air in the air mattress, and then suddenly you open the door and you just sink to the ground, and because all the air's going out, and that's kind of like what it was. It was like, hey, I'm hitting the wall. Ugh.
It's like,
Okay, well, that was fun.
Deflate.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was interesting. But like I said, I'm like 100% sure that's the first time that I've ever been kicked because of incident points. I've gotten close before in some races, but I don't think I've ever actually been kicked for that. So I was quite sad.
Well, I'm sorry that it was such a traumatic experience for you. That's never fun.
No. But like I said, California's tomorrow. I ran some laps this afternoon to get my seat set up, because I couldn't remember if I had set it up, but I had, so it didn't really end up mattering. But it was good to kind of get a couple laps in, and I like California quite a lot. I don't expect much though going into tomorrow after last week, and honestly, like, I really want to win the race. I would love to win. I really wanted to win one more time before the last three races, and I've had opportunities. I mean, I was really fast at Chicago. I was really fast at New Hampshire. And, I mean, I wanted Iowa, the second race anyways. But I wanted to win another one to kind of help, get some extra points and kind of help set me up for that last run. Because Tim and I think mathematically, I think it's a 3-horse race right now. And the guy that is the third one there, I don't know how many points he's back, but he's somewhere between 15 and 20 points behind Tim, who's the current points leader, if you factor in drop weeks. So, I mean, he's still there mathematically, but Tim and I have kind of, I don't know, it's going to be hard to beat either one of us. Like, he might beat me or he might beat Tim, but I don't think he's going to beat both of us, is what I'm getting at. No, not that he's a bad driver, because he's a good driver, but I just think it'll be hard to overcome both of us with the last 4 races to go.
And just to be clear, just so I understand and our fans understand as well, it's not quite a chase format per se. Like, it's not like you're zeroing out the points for the top so many drivers for those last 3 races. It's just those last 3 races, there's no drop weeks, basically. Like, they kind of calculate the points at the end of the 4th last race. And then for the next 3 races, it's just straight points after that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, your 4 drop weeks will take effect after tomorrow night. So after California's over with, whatever our worst drop weeks are, our worst races will be dropped. And then whatever points you have then is what you have going into, I think it's Phoenix is the first race of the last three. And so whatever you have then going into Phoenix is what you have. And then when you come out of Phoenix, you got that. And you come out of Talladega, which is the second race, you got that. And then you got Charlotte. And there's no, like, if you have a bad race at Talladega, but your Phoenix and your Charlotte are wins, then that's what you get. So there's no drop in that Talladega bad race. You know, it would just be win, 30th win is your points.
Right.
So,
gotcha. Okay.
Which in the past has made, in the Power Series, has made some really, really, really tight points for it. I mean, I think last season for them was really the furthest one that, so far as points goes, that they've had. They've had some really close battles. Like, I mean, I'm talking like last lap passes to win the championship, you know, 1 point here, 1 point there. I think they had guys tie one year and the tiebreaker came in. And I think last season, though, it was like a 10-point difference or something. It was like the most in a while. So the fact that Tim and I are separated by a point with 4 races to go seems to be a trend in the Power Series. So we'll see if, you know, how it goes. They're 4 good tracks for me. I mean, I know Talladega's a wild card, but it's still a good track for me.
Right.
Charlotte is the only one that I'm concerned about. California, Phoenix, Talladega, I got that. As long as nothing happens to me, I should have good finishes. Charlotte, while it's a good track for me, it's not a great track for me. And for Tim, it is a great track for him. So I hope that in the next 3 races, I can really score some points compared to him so I don't have to resort to Charlotte.
Right. Okay. Well, it sounds like you have a decent shot at winning that championship, and I think I speak for all of our listeners that we wish you good luck in those last 4 races, and hopefully you'll be able to add another championship trophy to the well, I mean, you got a new house now, so you must have a trophy case there with all your previous championships and just waiting to put another one in there.
Yeah, I think something like that.
So from my perspective, I did not participate in the Power Series last week. I was going to, I actually did run some practice laps. New Hampshire has always been on the flip side of Chad, the New Hampshire has always been a horrible track for me. I apparently need banking in order to exist in the oval world. Although I've actually had not too bad at Martinsville in the past, but New Hampshire's always been a mystery to me. And ran a few laps. They were not good laps. And then my wife came up and said, "Oh, okay, well, got this thing going on tonight. And it's like, yep, okay, it's okay. I won't race."
Thank you.
But I mean, realistically, I've kind of anybody who's been following me on Twitter kind of knows I've taken my focus away from. I mean, like the Power Series was something I was jumping into because it was fun. I knew I knew some of the racers. You were in there, obviously, John, Tim. So I knew it was a nice, safe place to kind of because I'd fallen away from racing for a bit, so not completely, but I'd gotten a bit rusty. So it was a good, safe place to get back in there and run some laps and have some fun. But I've kind of drifted away from that and put a lot of my focus, well, basically almost all of my focus on the track into the IndyCar Winter Series. So I didn't race Power Series last week. I will not be racing tomorrow night at California. But I did, and there's actually an additional reason on top of that, but I'll get to that in a minute. But I did do my Winter Series race on Thursday night instead of doing our podcast. Well, it would have been after we had been done anyway. And this week we were on the roadside once again. This was the 3rd week of the series, and we were at Sebring, which is it's a fun track. And it's as soon as I jumped in and started doing practice laps for that earlier in the week, it became very clear to me how much fun that track is, especially with that particular car, the Indy car. It's slightly horrifying, and I found that a lot with this car, just because it's so fast. Because a lot of the road racing I've done in the GT3 cars, or I've done a lot of races in the MX5 was kind of where I did a lot of learning the track sort of thing. And those cars, I mean, the race cars, they're fast, but there's a certain amount of heft to those cars. I mean, you know, it's not necessarily about the breakneck speed as it is, you know, with those cars. It's a lot of really heavy braking and, you know, and long braking zones because the cars are so heavy and stuff like that. The Indy car is so nimble that you are waiting really late into those corners before you're hitting the brakes. And in particular, turn 17 at Sebring, the very last corner before you head to the front stretch. You know, I was losing time, and I was watching some of the other guys because I was braking because it's a corner, and it's like a 180-degree corner, but it's just a very long, sweeping kind of corner. And going into that corner, it's like, okay, I'd brake beforehand and get myself set up and go through, and then, you know, power out of it. And I'm watching other people, and they were already turning, and like a third of the way into the turn before they even got off the gas. It's like, oh my goodness. You guys are crazy, because it's like probably the fastest part of the track because it's the longest straight stretch. And oh man, like that car is fun. I'm getting more and more comfortable with it. Like I said, that's kind of been my focus, is I'm finally going to learn this car, not necessarily how to set it up, because I'm a idiot when it comes to turning wrenches on a car, but actually going out there and learning how to drive the car. So throughout the week, I did, I practiced several times, and my timing wasn't that bad compared to where I knew, you know, the fast guys were. I believe the fastest I pulled off during the week was a low 146, and apparently the super fast guys, you know, like the top of the charts were 140, but you know, more average in the 143 range. So it was only about 3 seconds off from, you know, the middle guys kind of thing. It's like, okay, well, that's not so bad. You know, and it's a long lap, you know, almost 2 minutes. So obviously, you know, 3 seconds over that period of time isn't that bad. So I did some practice, and I was getting more and more comfortable. And again, shout out to Roy Clark, our teammate, who provided me with a really good setup, nice and stable. You know, it was obviously decently fast. So ran some practice laps, got really comfortable with the car, went out for my race on Thursday night. We had 2 splits. And I was obviously in the bottom. That's where I'm always going to be because of my I rating. And again, pulled my do not qualify because I'm getting comfortable with it. And, you know, Roy kind of smacked my fingers on that one. It's like, you're not that bad. You've got to get more confidence. I mean, if you're going to be, you know, trying to get these good finishes, you got to qualify and get in the mix and just be confident in your ability that you're going to be able to survive those first few laps and get your comfortable space out there. It's like, I know I'm not there yet. I'm getting there. I have 25 weeks. So I, you know, didn't qualify, started at the back, and it was funny because when I jumped into the server, I did some actually hosted a practice session before, not hosted, but jumped into a practice and streamed it, and was talking to some of the listeners of the show during that stream when I practiced. And when I jumped into the server, not only was it, you know, it's me, it's in there, and then James Moss was in there, the guy I mentioned last week, who's a listener of the show and competing with me in Division 8 for points. He was in there. But so was Roby Shuck, and so was Roy Clark. It's like, man, it's like a iRacing Today radio show party in here, man. And Roby actually, he PM'd me later, and apparently he bought the IndyCar because he wanted to try to do some of these races with me because, you know, he had heard my excitement about it and did some practice and figured it was a lot of fun. So he jumped right in there. So good on him. And it was funny too because not only did I not qualify and those guys were in the race with me, but because of the I rating, James was directly beside me and Roby was directly behind him. So we had this, you know, position wise, it was like an iRacing Today radio show sandwich. It was listener, me, another listener. So
don't wreck.
It's like, let's not all kill each other. And James joked with me. It's like, all right, just try to stay away from me, you know, because he was afraid, you know, that he was gonna mess up on the start type thing. It's like, man, let's just make a pact. Let's just all not take each other out, okay? We're all friends back here.
Yeah. Let's 3-car tandem to the front.
And Roy, actually, he had qualified, I think, 4th or something like that. And I never got a reasoning from him, although I believe he's in the chat room, so if he could, you know, add in at any time. But he actually pulled over to the side and dropped to the back. So the last 4 cars in this grid of, let me bring up the results here. In this grid of 29 cars were me and 3 other listeners of the show, and so it was quite funny. And actually provided a good opportunity on the stream because with James right beside me, he excuse me, he has his car painted up with our with us as part of his livery. So on the side of his front wing, it just says iRacing Today Radio Show, like it has our logo right there. So when I did my look left thing, it was like centered in the screen perfectly. So I did my my entire spiel of here's the race, here's what we're doing, and all that good stuff with just looking at James's car, so it'd have our logo right in the middle of the screen. So great job, thanks James, I appreciate that.
Free advertising.
So anyway, the start of the race actually ended up being not too bad, and for those of you who are not familiar with Sebring, I mean, starting like in the back, past position 20th, that sweeping turn 17, the guys on the front stretch, like the guy, in on the pole and whatnot, they're getting the green flag. We're still halfway through that corner. Like we haven't even hit the part where we can even hit the gas yet because, we'll spin out type thing. So that was a new experience for me. And then as we go tearing into turn 1, it is a wide corner, but it gets kind of real skinny after it because it kind of does this little chicane sort of thing afterwards that, and it ends with a turn that you have to take real slow. So I was expecting a mess on the first corner, on the first lap there. It didn't seem to be that bad. I mean, there might have been some guys spinning off. I don't even remember. But for us in the back, nobody ran over each other because I was waiting for that one as everybody slows down, not taking into account you have to slow down more because we're all packed up. But we ended up getting through there pretty okay. And it was funny. And Roy, who had started behind me because he had pulled off to the side, kind of came around and I pulled over for him. And I'm thinking to myself, actually, I think I even said, it's like, yeah, Roy's going to get on me for this one. It's like, but you know what? I know you're faster. I'm not going to fight you. I'm going to try to follow you through the field is what I'm going to try to do. See if he can open some gaps for me and kind of follow them through. So we got started. We're moving forward, and it was at this point in time that I think I kind of figured out maybe I should have qualified because some of the guys at the back, I was faster than them, and my racecraft isn't that great on the IndyCar yet and road racing in general. So picking my spots to pass isn't second nature for me yet. So I'm behind these guys, and there's a couple times like they, you always have to wait to find out where people's breaking points are before you can really trust how close you can get to them because you don't know. Everybody has different breaking points. And coming up on a couple guys, I give them room, and there's some guys that slow down way farther than I thought they were. Like you give them room, and then they double the room that you gave them that was already generous. So I almost hit a couple people doing that. Managed to keep it under control. Obviously not going to go lap by lap through the race. I did start just so we the story is clear on this one. I did start in 26th position. Throughout the race, it was a pretty good race. I actually made a couple good bold passes here and there. My Achilles heel, and I don't remember which turn it is, what number it is, but it's after it's not a straight stretch, but after the twisty little chicane part at the beginning of the lap, you go full on and you actually get all the way up to 6th gear, and then there's a hairpin to the right, and I could never ever get the speed right for that. I ended up in the grass a few times on that one, just overshooting it, and at one time I decided I haven't hit this corner right for the entire race, or mostly in practice at all. I've got a run up on this guy that I'm trying to pass. I know I'm faster than him. I know what I'll do. I'll hit the push to pass button, get some extra horsepower, get on his inside, and I'm going to pass him through the hairpin because that's my worst corner of the entire track. Why wouldn't I stick my nose in there? Needless to say, carried way too much speed, ended up in the grass, never did get by him at that point in time. And if you watch the stream, which I have on my YouTube channel now, you will hear me curse myself out. It's like, that was probably the dumbest thing you could have done, Trevor. It's like, don't pick the corners you're good at, the corners you're getting into and off of better than him. No. take your worst one. That's where you're going to pass them. So
confidence. I like it.
well, I mean, it's funny too because I was getting confidence throughout the race. I mean, it was, you know, like I said, I wasn't in the way. You know what I mean? Like I felt like I belonged, so to speak, as silly as that may be. Anyway, the end result was I ended up having a few self-induced offs. I never did, like I never had any contact with any other cars. It was always, you know, I got 13 incident points worth of me making mistakes kind of thing. One corner, although I will grant myself this one bit of smartness, and that I learned a lesson from the last road race at Watkins Glen, where I actually came out of corner, got a little bit loose, got it mostly stopped, and nudged the wall with my nose. And it's like, I don't know, because from my field of view, I can't see my front nose cone and my wing. So it's like, I don't know if I damaged it. Indy cars are different than stock car. You know, I didn't get a meatball. I didn't get, you know, there was no indication. It's like, I don't know. I may have hit it. I may have damaged it. I don't know. Went into the next corner. It didn't feel right. I can't remember if I completely spun or I just kind of sort of got loose and almost spun. But my brain, and it wasn't in my pit window because it's a one pit stop race. It wasn't in the pit window yet. It's like, you know what? My brain clicked. It's like, you did this last time at Watkins Glen. You didn't think your wing was damaged. You went one extra lap. You spun out twice on that lap because you had no front downforce. So as soon as I had that little bit of a, I don't think this feels right, I went right in the pits, even though I knew it wasn't in my window. Fortunately, as I saw, there is a little bit of my wing that I can see because I looked over and as the pit stop was finishing, I saw a little piece of metal appear where there wasn't one before. It's like, okay, my wing was gone. Okay, I made the right call here. Went out there again. Like I said, had a few incidents. There was one that was that the guys in the chat got a real good kick out of. I went into a corner. It started going loose. And as I'm fighting the car, trying to get it back under control, I just kept telling the car that it wasn't allowed to spin out. So I'm just sitting there going, no, 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 no. And I'm wiggling, fighting it. It's like, no, you will, no, 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 no. And then saved it. It's like, yeah, I told you you're not going to spin. You know, everybody got a kick out of that in the chat. It's like, yeah, well, I guess that's one way to do it. I mean, you could have spent your time, you know, like, well, at least what I'm thinking is like, I could have spent my time and energy fighting the wheel. No. I'm going to spend my time telling the car that it's not allowed to spin out, and that should work out pretty good. And it did, because I didn't. It was a nice save. And then there was another incident where I went into the grass and discovered that dirt racing would work on iRacing, because I go in the corner, I'm in the grass, and I straight up four-wheel drifted through the grass, never lost control of the car, and then ended up coming back onto the track straight, pointing in the exact right direction, and then just kept going. So just it was a nice drift. I should have saved the replay of that one. But in the end, as it turns out, I ended up one lap down. So, and I actually thought I was two, but in the end, it turns out it was only one. So I probably would have stayed on the lead lap if I hadn't had you know, a couple of my incidents there. But even though I pitted early, because I didn't have to do that extra lap, I didn't have to pit again. I thought about moving the my engine mapping down to try to save some fuel, but I'm doing some calculations as best I can because there's a lot going on with the car. It's like, you know what? I think I'm good. So because I had to do that one less lap as everybody, and as it turns out, when it was perfect. Like as I hit the start-finish line to take the checkered, the car cut out on me. Like I could not have timed it more perfectly. Like it was literally as soon as I hit the start-finish line, it's like, well, can't hope for anything better than that as far as fuel mileage goes. So in the end, started in 26th position and ended up finishing in 12th. And I was very, very pleased with that. Like I am, again, better than my one oval race so far. Finished in 12th position, and it was like I said, it you know, yes, I did pass some people because, you know, people had issues and whatnot, but I feel like I earned that 12th position. The practice, the comfort in that car, and not to mention the fact that it is challenging. I mean, like that is like this car is hard to drive on a road course. I mean, it is so because you're so fast going into those corners, and that's something I'm just not used to. But it was a lot of fun. Like that track is fun. I was actually hoping to get another race in this week, but that's not going to happen. But here are a couple stats I will say that I am proud of so far, as we are 3 weeks into this 25-week series and my quest to become the Division 8 IndyCar Winter Series champion. My average start in this in my division is second worst. Only one guy has a well, there's a couple people tied with me, but only one person has a worst average starting position. And my average starting position has been 28th, so second worst in the entire division, yet my average finish is 21st best. So I'm quite happy with that. As far as my actual position goes, there are 2 more races left to go this week, but currently I am sitting in 5th position in the division with 112 points, with the leader with 147. So I am not that far off. And the one person who is in first position has a race win, and he's the only one in our division who's actually won a race. So I'm hoping that I can catch up on overall average as opposed to getting that one victory out there. But maybe I'll start getting more confident and I can actually jump out, I don't know, qualify and get myself in the mix. I mean, I know Roy would... is telling me to do that, and he's right, and my confidence is definitely coming up. So anyway, so far 5th position in the division so far, a couple of races left to go, so that could fall a little bit more, but I am enjoying the heck out of this series, and I'm really, really glad that I made the decision to make this kind of my primary racing focus for the next little bit here, because it is between jumping, the ovals and the road, and several listeners have decided to jump on and do the series as well. This has been a great experience. I'm having a lot of fun, and can't wait to see how Iowa goes this week with the on the oval side. So hopefully I'll be doing that race on Thursday night this week coming up. So
cool.
I know I've been talking a lot, but it's you talk a lot too when you're doing your stuff. So yeah,
I enjoy it. It's nice to actually have you talk a lot about experiences, because usually it's like Chad talks for 20 minutes and Trevor just says, "Yeah, I didn't race."
Well, I mean, it's like I said, it has been a lot of fun. This series is fun. I mean, and actually, and looking back through the standings there, I mean, like my best lap time through that race was 1:45.8. So I even bested my previous, best in practice. And like the winner of the race was a 1:44.3. So, I mean, I was less than 2 seconds off of the fastest guy who won the race. So, yeah, I'll take that. I mean, it's the bottom split of 2. I understand that. I mean, I'm racing with the people I should be racing with, but still, that for me as a non-road racer, although I seem to be more and more of a road racer as time goes on, that is, I don't know. I would say that is impressive for me. So,
absolutely.
So, before I stop talking non-stop about things, I will mention, I mentioned I wouldn't be doing the Power Series tomorrow night, and there is a reason why I'm going to kind of drop that off my schedule for now, and, like I said, part one of the reason is I'm putting the IndyCar Winter Series as my priority when it comes to my actual on-track time. The second is the fact that, as I mentioned last week, I was trying out some, or I can't remember if last week I was going to, yeah, it would have been before I'd done the first one. I was going to start working with a broadcaster, somebody who does some iRacing broadcast races, to get back up in the booth and start working with them to see if it was a good fit for me. And so the first time I did a race with them, it was I was just doing a spotter, so it was a silent roll, just kind of feeding the announcers information on what was going on the track. Mostly it was just so that I could get used to their way of doing things. Make sure, like I said, it was a good fit, with the people, their methods of doing things, and just kind of get a feel for them as a company. I liked what I saw. And this afternoon, yeah, it was actually earlier today. It's been a weird day. I actually jumped into the booth as a third reporter or a third commentator for them. Because typically they'd roll people through kind of in a slow process, but because I kind of have a lot of experience on the mic when it comes to talking about iRacing and whatnot because of 115 episodes of this show. We kind of accelerated that a little bit once I was comfortable with what was going on, and I've got to say, these guys, and I left it out before because I didn't, who knew what I was going to find when I stepped behind the curtain, so to speak. But it is with the Global Sim Racing channel that I am actually going to be doing some broadcasting with here. They run a really professional show. I was really impressed with what I saw, the way that they handle it. And so everybody had a role, and they have a guy working in the background, actually the guy who runs the company, giving the cues. They have a different guy on camera. They have the commentators. They have spotters. They have and the way that the professionalism that I saw with the way these guys handle what they're doing, but still having fun. It was a really good fit for me. And like I said, I jumped in with them this afternoon for a race. Well, a couple of races, actually, as the case may be. Did some tertiary commentary. It was, as opposed to a pit reporter, because they were split. They were sprint races. There wasn't there wasn't going to be pit stops. So I was kind of watching all the battles at the back of the pack while the main two commentators were doing the stuff at the front. So had a lot of fun with that. Talked to them afterwards, and it's like, yeah, no, you are a good fit for the team. And I felt comfortable with working with those guys. So, long story short, is I'm going to be dropping the Power Series because, as everybody knows, with my my family situation and the way that I my busy life as it is, I only have so many nights that I can actually book aside for dedicated time frames. I mean, yeah, I game when I can and all that good stuff, but that's at my own leisure. The show, any racing I do, and now broadcasting has to be scheduled around my family. So I'm going to be doing the IndyCar Winter Series as my race, and then I'm going to be taking some more time to do some broadcasts with these guys. So actually the first one where I will be kind of basically and as a full commentator is going to actually happen tomorrow afternoon, and it is the Lionheart Racing Series. It's actually a racing series dedicated around or in the memory of Dan Weldon, who, if you know Dan, if you knew of Dan, one of his nicknames was Lionheart. It's an IndyCar racing series, so perfect fit for me. I seem to be becoming more and more familiar with that, and they're actually doing a full-on 500-mile race at Indianapolis tomorrow, so it's going to be a long one, but that will be at 12:45 p.m. Pacific time, which, I don't know, add 3, so 3:45 Eastern time, unless daylight savings time messes, I don't know anymore. Time is confusing to me, but I will be tweeting out when we go live with that. So I'll be bloody farmers giving us food. What are you doing?
Messing with our time.
So I'll be doing some more broadcasts with them. Keep a watch on my Twitter as far as when we go live and whatnot. So it'd be great if you guys stop by, gave some support. Let me know how I'm doing. Give me, give me some feedback on whatnot. But it was a lot of fun being back in the booth. I mean, me and Chad did it a while for the Integrity Racing League, and that was fun. And I kind of missed that. So when this opportunity came up, it's like, you know what? Yeah, I could do that some more. That was that was fun being up in the booth. And I dare say, after doing, however many shows since the last time we did a broadcast race, I think the mic skills have become a little bit cleaner and smoother in the past year and a half, 2 years, however it's been since we've been up in the booth. So anyway, their website, I'll put a link in the show notes anyway, but they're at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can check them out for when they go live. They usually do it through their YouTube channel, but watch my Twitter. I'll send out a tweet when we go live tomorrow, and you can come by and check us out and see how I do in my real debut as a commentator with these guys. So,
Now, I just have one question. Is it really going to be Trevor or Travis that shows up tomorrow?
yeah, they. I didn't even know that I was going to be on the air this time, and so I don't think the other guys did either. So in their defense, as they were watching all these great battles, they forgot my name and decided to call me Travis for part of the race. But there was actually a Travis in the race, so I can understand their confusion. And I've been called Travis before. I've been called Chad before. I've been called Kevin before. So it's all fine.
Yeah, I do. I can also say that I kind of miss the broadcast stuff because I mean it was fun to do it with Trevor, but I also kind of expanded a little bit and did it with a company that I won't mention, but and it was fun. You know, it's kind of different. And I actually mentioned at some point on the show that there was a time in my iRacing driving career where I was kind of at the quote-unquote end of the road. Not that I was going to quit, but I was just like, I don't know about this anymore. And broadcasting actually helped me get back into the swing of driving. I've told several people that, about how I was really down in the dumps from being behind the wheel, and somehow talking about people being behind the wheel helped me get the urge to do it again. So broadcasting is fun. I enjoy doing it with Trevor, I think more in particular. Not that I didn't like the other people I did it with, but I don't know. There's just something about talking to Trevor.
I was going to say
it's a lot of fun.
We kind of have an established chemistry already. So
yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I might try to pull back out my microphone for that one day. But we'll see how it goes, and I'll try to catch some of your Indy 500 tomorrow.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a good fit for me to jump back in there because obviously I've been thinking a lot about the IndyCar recently, and Indianapolis is one of my favorite tracks to watch those cars go around. So it should be a fun race to watch and to broadcast from. So I'm looking forward to that most certainly.
Yeah.
So well, let's see. Why don't we talk right quickly about a couple people who sent in their their track results that missed our cutoff from the last time. So we can include them into the conversation and let them be heard, so to speak.
Yeah.
So,
let their voices ring out.
I believe the first one that didn't make last week's show is from Clay. Is that correct?
Yes, Clay.
Why don't you read that? I've been talking for a bunch.
Yeah, please be quiet. Clay sent in his favorite top 5. He also sent in, and I'll take this time to make a promotion out of it, he sent in his tracks that he dislikes, and that is the promotion part where we asked you guys on last week's show, and girls, to go ahead and send in the tracks that you're not too fond of, just because we were curious to see the flip side to all of it. But anyways, Clay's favorite top 5 tracks. He says, number 1 is Lanier, and then he put in parentheses because Clay, for the record, is a real-life race car driver, does some late model racing, I believe it is. Mm-hmm. And he says that the reason why Lanier is number 1 is because it is closest to the real track that he actually races. So kind of a similar feel there for him. So I could see how that would be a favorite. Number 2 is Pocono. He says in parentheses as well, I somehow did well at it the first time I tried it, which was back on NR 2013. I wonder if he meant 2003.
Yeah, that would probably be more correct because I don't believe there was any. Papyrus was a distant memory by 2013.
Yes. His third is New Smyrna, which I don't believe we had anybody else say that. And he said, I'll likely never get to take part in Speed Weeks in real life, but he loves New Smyrna, which is a fun track. Again, kind of the same thing. Number 4, Five Flag Speedway. And he also says, I'll likely never get to compete in a real snowball / snowflake derby, but he does like it. So he's kind of a short track guy.
Yeah, well,
3 of the 4 so far are short track.
As a late model, I can't remember if it's late model or super late models that he drives, but as a late model driver, obviously the short tracks are going to be near and dear to his heart, I would imagine. Much like if we, asked Mr. John Michael Shinnett or Jeremy Davis, what their favorite tracks were, I bet you we'd have a similar list.
Yes, we probably would. And his 5th track is a road course, and that is Lime Rock Park, or Lime Park, depending on who you are.
Depending on who you ask.
Yeah. Just like, Martinsville is a mile long.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he says, one of a short list of road courses that he can occasionally be competitive on. So that is why Lime Rock makes his list. So thank you very much, Clay.
I said also a short track. Could be, well, I guess in discounting some of the configurations of some of the other tracks, that may be the shortest actual configuration of road course on the sim as well. So it's almost a short track road course, and all but one of the turns are in one direction. So it's right. Yeah. It's the wrong direction, but it's but they're still all one direction.
Every turn there, except for turn 3, I think it is a right-handed turn. He does go on to say that there is an honorable mention that he likes Bristol. It's a fun track, and someday he hopes to watch a race there in person. So I high-five Clay for putting Bristol on his list.
Yep, you and me, Clay, we both hope that we can watch a race there live one time, but unfortunately haven't made it yet. Maybe we'll get there at the same time one day, and we can just hang out and watch a race at Bristol.
And you can come say hi to me, because I'll be there, I'm sure.
Exactly.
Anyways, who else sent us one?
There we go. Stacy Bertrand, who we've mentioned on the show a few times in the past as well, found iRacing through our show. So Stacy mentions, in no particular order, much like mine, we're just kind of, hey, here's some tracks I like. In no particular order, her tracks are Lime Rock Park, which is, as she says, is the first track I raced on in competition on iRacing, and says it's a fun track. That's probably one of the first track a lot of people try on the sim when it comes to road racing, because obviously you get it as part of your subscription.
Yeah, that and Okayama are probably the 2 most popular when you first start out.
I would imagine so, yeah. And then Mazda Laguna Seca, also a free included track. She says, I've driven this track, lots of fun, and in my state of California. So I assume that means that Stacy, who I forgot to mention, is also a race car driver in real life. So sounds like she's actually had a chance to go through Laguna Seca, and I'm guessing, since it's in her list, does not hate that corkscrew turn at the top of that hill as much as I do. Next would be Mount Panorama, which looks like the funnest track on the server and one of the hardest to master. That would be probably correct until a certain course from over on the other side of the pond enters the service. Next is Road America. I've really grown a fondness for this track and its rhythm driving style. I'm with you on that one, Stacy. I love that track. And Watkins Glen, when I raced one lap of America in 2003. This was the first track we drove, and where I saw people hammering on a crunched up Lamborghini. I don't know what that means. were they?
Apparently,
was it actual hammers?
Apparently, it was broken, and they fixed it.
That would make sense. That would make a lot more sense than people just going into the parking lot with hammers and beating up a nice, expensive sports car. I like your excuse or your reasoning a lot more. It's probably closer to what Stacy was thinking. So Stacy's obviously a road driver at heart, and I'm guessing that is what she drives in real life when she is out on the track, because they're all road courses. And she got Road America on there and Watkins Glen, so she's all right with me, because those two are on my list as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So continue to send in your favorite tracks and start sending in your non-favorite tracks as well, and we'll continue to read them as we get them. But finishing out the show with our poll question results from September. And also take a quick minute to mention that there is a new poll, because it's October now, spooky Halloween. So there's a new poll. It's a neat poll, and I really encourage all of you, as always, but I especially on this one, encourage you to go vote because it's kind of an interesting topic, if you will. That said, our poll question from September was, how many hours of practice do you log before attempting to race? And we had quite a good turnout again, as per normal. 34% of the votes, and the winner of this poll question was 1 hour. So 34% of you spend an hour preparing for a race each week. 26% of you said less than an hour. 18% of you said 2 hours. 10% of you, surprisingly, at least to me, said 5+ hours. 6% said 3 and 4 hours each. So kind of a mix there. But like I said, the 5+ hours, I was kind of surprised to see that many people spend that much time. Putting in some practice, but that's good. I mean, I'd rather see that number go up than the less than an hour number.
Then the practice. What's that?
Yeah, when we talking about practice. Okay, so that is only an NBA Allen Iverson thing that only a few of you will probably even get. If you don't have a clue what I'm talking about, Google Allen Iverson. We talking about practice.
We talking about practice.
Yes.
Gotcha.
It's funny. It's funny. Anyways, I voted for 1 hour because in the past I used to spend quite a lot of time figuring out, things. And there are still some road courses that I spend more than an hour on. But typically now the most that I ever do is an hour because I have a pretty good feel for most of the tracks and cars that I drive. So I don't need as much practice as I used to need. But again, occasionally I'll run into a track that I need some practice on.
And although I see from the show notes that you do not have a something by my name, and I think what might happen is I voted for it while I was not logged into my account, because occasionally my work computer will log me out of various things, but I also voted for 1 hour. So my count is in there as part of the 34%, just not attributed to myself particularly. Although I would say that I voted on that early on in the month, and now that I've gotten into this winter series, I would say that's probably not accurate anymore. I would probably have voted for 2 hours if I voted now, because I have, with the learning of the car and jumping between road and oval, I am definitely putting in more than an hour each week getting ready for each of those races. I might have even put in 3 hours this week getting ready for Sebring. So my practice time is increasing while yours is diminishing because you've now driven a lot of the car and track combinations on the service. I, however, am going into uncharted territory and feel I must practice more and more and more.
Practice.
We talk about practice, or so I hear.
I'm supposed to be the franchise player, and we talking about practice. It really is funny. Google it.
Indeed. I will not do that now because we are doing a radio show, but we will be finishing that radio show pretty quick here. So, yeah, I guess there's not a lot to discuss on that one. It seems like, if you look at it, it's basically, 60% of you are an hour or less, which is pretty much what I thought. I mean, not everybody's going to put in a huge amount of time. And a lot of people who get into these races are a lot like me, where they will jump into the races they're comfortable with. They're not, just saying, oh, okay, wonder what's going now, and just jumping into it. A lot of people, at least I feel, will probably stick to the combinations that they're really comfortable with. I mean, the short track guys are going to, stick with their late model on the short tracks or the modifieds or whatever, and the NASCAR guys are going to stick more to, their mile and a half, and they're going to be familiar with those sorts of tracks. So probably like you, they're used to the combinations they're driving, so they're probably not putting a lot of practice in per race because the cumulative practice has already happened. Or or I'd imagine a lot of that 60% are probably people who are treating this very casually, because at the end of the day, it is something for us to have fun with. It's a hobby. It's not something to commit your life to unless you're going for the Driver World Championship. You're looking for that $10,000 check,
And
so
the road guys, it seems like primarily are road racers. Just it's like reading the back of their hand. They just know exactly what they're doing, so they don't need to practice because they're experts. At least that's what I found.
Yeah, and it's funny too because as as I'm going down, like I'm probably racing more road racing now than I'm doing any oval racing, and that seems to be skewing more over in that side. Although I guess IndyCar will end up being half and half, but it's I'm finding there's more and more tracks that I'm picking up way quicker, and that was always my biggest fears because you go to a road course as opposed to an oval. And I've mentioned this on the show. It's you have to spend that time learning that track. You have to know where your braking points are. You have to recognize what turn you're in based on landmarks, surroundings, whatever. And that was always something that was intimidating to me. And I'm finding more and more I'm jumping into tracks, and it's either one that I'm more, I'm used to, like the Glen or something along those lines, or it's a track that I'm jumping in, doing my laps slow, getting used to it, and it's clicking way quicker than it used to with me when it comes to road racing. So I'm getting there. I'm getting to that point where I could say, oh, this course, I know Mid-Ohio, because I remember this turn, this turn, this turn. Plus, I mean, and from my perspective, I'm watching a lot more road racing on TV, with F1 and IndyCar. So I'm watching that race, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, now you're going to go race at Spa, or you're going to race at, Suzuka. And I remember watching that race in the track rundown from the F1 race or the IndyCar race and looking and say, oh, well, I recognize that corner, because I've seen it, on the TV type thing. So.
Yeah, I don't know how I did so well in the V8 series because I never watched a V8 car race in my life. I've never really even, before I did the series earlier this year, I'd never even really participated in the car. So for me, I did spend at least an hour, sometimes 2 hours, kind of like what Trevor's doing with the Winter Series, preparing for those V8 races because, number one, and most important, when I was doing that series, I was trying to not be the guy that everybody points to and says, oh my gosh, he's awful, don't race around him. And number two, I actually really wanted to do well. I mean, I wasn't just going to race the V8 series because I wanted to be on the racetrack and so I could come on the show and say, oh yeah, I raced in that series. I wanted to do well. So I did spend some extra time at various racetracks practicing quite a lot for that. But once I got used to the car and the braking and everything, and it became a lot easier. And as the season went on, I think the time that I spent practicing went down a little bit because I was more comfortable in the car itself. And some of the tracks we ran, I already knew anyways, like Circuit Zolder, for example. So, yeah, I just find that I don't practice as much as I used to, but it's there's still some tracks where I need to.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, it's weird because we're kind of on opposites where I'm gearing up. I mean, it's probably obvious, but between the Winter Series and now the broadcasting and everything, I'm at one of those. There's always peaks and valleys when it comes to your interest in whatever it is, if it's a long-term hobby such as this. And I'm definitely at one of the peaks right now. Like I am more excited than I've been in a long time about getting out there on the track and racing and making the time to get out there and practice early in the week. Like I haven't done that in a long time.
Yep, I can vouch for this.
So, like even when I was started to do the Power Series, it was probably I'd do a little bit of practice on maybe Saturday or Sunday afternoon a little bit before. I mean, I was practicing before the races, but it was never like with this series where I'm taking, sitting down Monday night, as soon as the servers go live, I'm getting out there and practicing to get used to, the track and the traffic and everything going on. So I am definitely at a high when it comes to my interest in getting out there on the track. So that's probably when my practice time is going up right now.
Yeah, and see, that's kind of the opposite to me, where as I mentioned, the V8 series, I spent a lot of time practicing. In the Power Series, I haven't really spent a lot of time practicing because I already kind of know what it is I'm supposed to do. And now my time practicing has gone even way more down because of my iRacing system not even being anywhere near me.
In the same house that you were currently, going to sleep at night. So
yes. So I have to drive across town now to actually, practice.
And that's
But
see, now there's a bigger commitment. It's like, well, it's like, oh, should I go practice? Well, I could go down into my office and run some laps. It's like, no, all right, now I got to get get all dressed up and have to get out in my car and drive across town and then go there.
in the rain.
All this just, it's like at some point in time in that decision making process, it's like, or I could just not.
Yeah, or I could go hang pictures because I still need to finish that. So yeah, but I had to go to where my iRacing computer was today. So while I was there, I was like, maybe I'll just run some laps. So that was the only reason why. Actually, the main reason was because I wanted to make sure my computer was up to date because I hadn't had it on since last Sunday, and Windows likes to push out updates, but it didn't have any updates. So I was like, okay, well that was kind of pointless, but I'm at least semi-prepared for tomorrow. But, probably, I don't know yet because we haven't started discussing it yet as a team, but I'll probably be running next week at Road Atlanta, so I'll definitely have to practice for that because Road Atlanta, while I have some experience at, is a track that I need to get more experience at, especially in whatever car we're going to be in.
Right.
If I'm actually doing the Block Pain Endurance Series qualifying thing, then I need to practice the BMW because that's the car we are in. But if I do the other race, the 10-hour one, then I have no idea what car we're in. So I don't know. I don't even know if I'm going to do that. But anyways, we'll see. I kind of like to get back out there and do some more road racing because it's been a little while. I mean, it's been since the last endurance race, which was in August. So I'd like to get back out there and do some more of it, but I got to figure that out.
Well, I mean, in the next couple few months are going to be weird for you. So
yeah. And that's kind of why I wouldn't mind a broadcast, even though it would still be weird to drive, across town to do that. But it's at least I don't have to. All the preparing that I would have to do for that, I can do anywhere because it's just going to the internet, basically. Whereas racing, because I can get on the internet at my house, I just can't race on the internet at my house because it wouldn't work very well. But broadcasting would be easy to prepare for. I could just show up and be like, "Hi guys, let's do this."
But anyway, that was our poll question for the month of September. As Chad mentioned, head on over to our site, which you all know what it is anyway, but in case you didn't know, because I obviously don't know, because during my stream it's like, oh, and remember we're doing the race, the show and stuff like that, head over to iRacingTodayRadioshow.com. It's like, that's not our website at all.
No, not even close.
Not even close. Oh, come on, shit. You got to give me some credit there. It's really close, actually. I just made it longer. So
no.
Yeah.
No credit.
Come on. Really? Nothing?
No credit because we've done this for 115 times.
I know.
You still can't get it right.
Maybe I'll just go out and get iRacingTodayRadioshow.com and then just have it redirect. But anyway, that poll question is over on iRacingTodayRadio.com, in case you didn't know, but you know that. And head on over there and vote in this month's poll so we can talk about it come the chilly month of November. So before we head out,
unless you're in Australia, then it's really hot.
Oh yeah, okay. I guess that's right. 75% of our listeners are below the equator. Well, actually, no. I guess between Australia and the UK. So, but anyway, one last thing I will mention on a non iRacing note before we close out the show here. I have my addiction to Destiny. While I'm not doing all this racing and practicing, my addiction to Destiny has gone back up higher ever since they've released the 2.0, Destiny 2.0 and the latest expansion. I've been playing a lot of that. So if you are out there and you are playing Destiny on the PS4, I don't know if it's cross-compatible with the PS3 or not, but definitely not the Xbox. But if you are playing Destiny on the PS4 and you are not a friend of mine on the PSN, send me a friend request. It is Ratface16 because I'm at level 36 right now, and my light level, none of this will mean anything to anybody who doesn't play Destiny, is like in the 170 range, which means I'm getting pretty close to being able to do the raid, and in order to do that, I need to have friends to do that. and I want to kind of experience that. So if you're playing Destiny, send me a friend request, and maybe we can hook up because I'm getting close to the end game stuff, and I could really use some friends to do that with. So just wanted to put that out there. Fun game.
All I got out of that was your levels raised, you want to raid, and you want to hook up.
I'm just saying anyway, for me to really, really get into a console shooter, like as I've been mouse and keyboard to the death man when it comes to my first-person shooting, but I have really liked playing that game despite the fact that I have to use a controller, and I'm getting pretty good at it. So, but
cool.
Anyway, I will say that it is time for us to get out of here. This ended up being a longer show than I thought it would, but then again, why am I surprised anymore? We will leave you with the words of Shane van Gisbergen, who is a V8 supercar driver and participates in the Blancpain Endurance Series. And he says, iRacing.com is the best racing simulator, hands down. Not only for the accuracy of the laser scan tracks and cars, but also anyone can sign up and be racing against professional drivers from across the world who, like me, use iRacing as a tool to improve driving skills. I spend as much time as possible on iRacing. Not only does it have a lot of use for race preparation and practice, it's a lot of fun. Recently, I've started working on iRacing's V8 supercar with their new tire model and data acquisition program to actually overlay data from the iRacing V8 compared to my real-life V8 at Phillip Island. Unbelievable. The new tire model has such huge potential and is already a massive step forward for iRacing. Come take us on. So that was Shane van Gisbergen. And I will say from me, thank you everybody out there for listening. We really, really do appreciate all you do for us on this show to participate and make this a lot of fun to do. Remember, the show is available for download on iTunes and Zune under the podcast section, where we would really appreciate a review to help us get the word out. The show is also available on YouTube and Twitch at Ratface Productions and mirrored over on Chad's channel on YouTube. It's Chadillac. You can check out the website for information, archives, links, and of course that poll that we mentioned over at iRacingTodayRadio.com. Do not go to iRacingTodayRadioshow.com because I don't know where that goes. Follow us on Twitter. I'm at iRacingToday, and Mr. Chad over there is at It's Chadillac.
And you can email any questions, comments, favorite tracks, the tracks you're not too fond of, and your poll suggestions for our poll question that you may have to feedback at iRacingTodayRadio.com. Of course, feel free to add myself and Trevor as friends on the iRacing members website. And if you aren't a member yet and you listen to the show and think, hey, I might get into that iRacing thing, please refer either Trevor or myself in the referral box when you sign up by entering Trevor's email, which is ratface@gmail.com, or mine, which is iRacingLegend@gmail.com. But until next week, ladies and gentlemen, remember that the race is rarely won in the first turn,
but it is often lost there. Good night, everybody.